Hi, I'm Scott Mayer, and this is Crash Course Literature. Today we'll be talking about the adventures of Huckleberry Finn and evaluating the relationship between Huck, a young white boy, and Jim, an African-American slave. The novel is set in the mid-1840s, before the Fugitive Slave Act is passed, so it would be easier for slaves like Jim to escape and not have to worry about being captured once more and sent back to the South. However, this book is actually written after the Civil War, in around 1885, when slaves were freed, but African Americans still faced massive amounts of racism and discrimination. Since the novel's publication, there has been a huge debate on whether or not the book is racist towards African Americans. Roll intro. Now, Huck and Jim don't start off with the best relationship, but even from the beginning we can see that Huck doesn't fully believe in the racial stereotypes that plague the South. Like when Huck and Tom Sawyer, and yes, that's the same Tom Sawyer from Twain's other book, they find Jim under a tree asleep or nap or whatever, and Tom suggests that they tie him to a tree as a joke. Huck, however, doesn't want to do this because Jim just hasn't done anything wrong to him, so why would he mess with him like that? During the 1840s, Southern white people typically treated slaves as scum, abusing them and ridiculing them to no end for no good reason. However, Huck strays away from the stereotypical norms and treats Jim better than most white people do. Since the tree encounter, Huck and Jim are linked forever together for the rest of the book. While Huck later leaves his abusive father and escapes to an island in the Mississippi River, Jim runs away from his owner, Miss Watson, and escapes to the same island. There, Huck stumbles upon Jim and decides not to turn him in, something unheard of among Southerners. Moreover, Huck actually decides to help Jim escape, something that he knows will certainly lead him into danger. In fact, in Chapter 11, he even dresses up as a girl, naming himself George Peters, to find out information about Jim. Ever since the beginning, Huck and Jim's relationship has been unique and strong, portraying Twain's anti-racist motives.
You missed the best part of the book, man. The middle.
What?
Get out of me. Okay, so in the middle of the book we see some really ridiculous stuff. Huck and Jim, for some bizarre reason, take off downriver on a raft to the south, the very source of slavery, to find Jim's freedom. And even though Jim was already on an island halfway to freedom, the state of Illinois, he could have easily finished swimming across, like the Huck.
No.
Thanks, Dwayne. Yet, instead of going downriver, we see a bond develop on the raft. At one point, a dead body comes floating down the river towards them, and Jim prevents Huck from looking at it, not only to prevent him from seeing the sight of a dead body, but because he knows that that body is Huck's actual father. In this, we see that Jim kind of develops a bond with Huck, becoming sort of pseudo-dad to replace Huck's actual father, an abusive drunkard by the name of Pat. However, it takes us a while to see the same change in Huck. Even on the raft, we observe the same classic Mark Twain Tom Sawyer pranks that have been in the past book. And Huck tries to play everything off, and even at one point, Huck tells Jim that when he left him, it was all just a dream, which Jim gets smart about and catches Huck in. As a result, Huck feels really awful, and we see him feel apologetic, which is something so random at that point in the South that nobody could have believed it. And he even claims to have kissed Jim's feet, which is something entirely unsanitary, but that's a different story. In this, we start to see Huck view Jim as not only human, but as a friend. And after this, Twain just kind of takes a break. Instead of focusing on a rich, profound story of a white male and an African-American slave breaking societal norms and becoming friends, Twain throws in the Duke and the King. And the book, we just see, well, the beginning of the end. After Twain comes back from his little break, the book shifts more to a look at these wackos here than a debate on slavery and morality. Jim kind of fades to the back, and he becomes Huck's left-behind sidekick, tethered to the raft while Huck tags along on all the convoluted mishaps of the Duke and the King, halting the character development and pretty much any development between the two in the book. So now, for the end.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you saying the ending of the book?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll help you out with that.
Wait.
Yeah. Okay, so after 2 chapters of unnecessary plots by the Duke and King, Twain decides to let the Duke and King sell Jim back into slavery. This allows Huck to completely go against the social norms of the 1840s by risking his life to save Jim, and showing that he values a black life over his own life. Thus, Huck progressively shows his maturity and morality by deciding to go and free Jim, even though his decision goes against all that Miss Watson taught him and what he knows. Huck bravely decides to go to hell and to save Jim, exemplifying his strong bond between him and Jim. However, this sadly is the height and the climax of the novel, because it kind of goes downhill from here. From this point on, the book rapidly goes on a downward spiral, although Huck could have seemingly rescued Jim by stealing a key and letting him out. He meets Tom Sawyer and decides to turn Jim's escape into almost a game. At first we think Tom Sawyer is actually going to help him, and we think that he has changed and that he actually wants to help out Jim. However, Tom merely wants another adventure and making a fool of Jim, and Huck making Jim's entire rescue infinitely more difficult for no reason. Why would Twain ruin the concluding chapters of a novel with so much potential by making Jim be stuck in slavery? The rescue into Jim and allowing Huck to submissively follow along, it really destroys the potential beauty that the chapter of the book has, and the development that Huck and Jim have. Honestly, the conflicting events of the novel really makes it difficult to perceive whether or not the book is racist. However, overall, the book leaves you indifferent, because on one hand, you're infuriated at the fact that Jim is still in slavery, and basically they're making his freedom seen as a joke. He is toyed with for days on end, not realizing the seriousness of a man's slavery and the horrible life and injustice that slavery brings. However, it is seen that Huck understands the idea that a relationship between a white man and an African American can be formed. We see that Huck believes that there can overall be freedom between an African American, and that whites and African Americans should be given the same rights that whites are, overcoming the racial stereotypes that plague the South. So one could say that this novel is racist, but it lacks the greater idea to make a strong anti-racist novel. Whoa, where am I? Whoa, what is this? No. It's a letter to Mark Twain from me. Oh, I have to read this. Pathetic. Yes, pathetic indeed. Why did you have to finish the book like that, Mr. Twain? Like, why? You had all the chance to build a solid relationship between Jim and Huck by telling their story. Why, Tom? All of a sudden. I am pretty disappointed. I mean, I know you're rushed and all, and TBH, the end was pretty bad. Tom did not have to carry on his adventures, nor did he have to influence Huck in a way to break his ties with Jim. Like, wasn't Jim the main character? Not Tom. Jim barely gets mentioned in the last parts. As a very upset fan, I am suggesting one thing. Tom should have been there at the story and should have been focused on Jim and Huck realizing what a true friendship is. Well, I mean, you're dead, so you can't do anything about it, but just wanted to let you know that I'm very disappointed in you. Sorry to give you stress when you're up there, but it was all your fault. You created this mess. Rest in peace. Love, Morgan.
I'm afraid, short of fire, I'm the dark in need of light. When we touch, you inspire, feel it changing